Hey everybody, welcome to the latest edition of The Gray Area. It's hunting season. Final month of the schedule for the Detroit Lions, headed down a 4-week stretch in a really big game against the Los Angeles Rams. We're finally back to Sunday football. Going to talk about what we've learned. Going to get into some numbers over narratives, something I tripped and stumbled into in the special Sunday edition of the show that I did with Chris. We'll talk about the sweet irony of good marketing, what reinforcements might be on the way, and an updated look at the enemies list. Cue the intro. Before I jump right into it, please do the like and subscribe thing here with the channel. That's how we get to keep the content free and keep doing what we're doing. According to Chris, we are in expansion mode. He won't tell me his secrets. I don't know what that means, but there's even more stuff coming from the Detroit Lions podcast, and you can get all of it if you do the clicky thing there down below. So please do that. I want to start with what we learned. I know it's off time because of the Thursday games, but bear with me. The main lesson I took away from the game against the Dallas Cowboys is that the Lions offense still exists. That's how that thing is supposed to look. The run game gave you just enough. David Montgomery got involved. Jameer Gibbs was a demon catching passes. You got almost 100 yards out of Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jameer Gibbs. You had some time for Goff. Eventually, a little shaky there at the beginning. The offensive line wasn't great to start. Got to see the debut of Myles Frasier. A little bit of a mixed bag. I'm a little more encouraged by what I saw than some people are. I think he could be a guy. All in all, it was a nice offensive day for the Detroit Lions, the number one scoring offense in the league. It was good to see them return to form. There was something else that happened, though, and it didn't come up until the Sunday conversation with Chris. We did a special post-game show because he was on the road and Thursday football. Anyway, and I mentioned this just kind of in passing, that it seemed to me, it's just intuitive, that if it's a good David Montgomery day, that it's probably a good Jared Goff day, because David Montgomery needs the offensive line to give him a crease. He doesn't need a lot. He doesn't need them to pave the road, but he needs them to make some gaps, and then he can cut back and he can do all the things that he's really good at doing, and he's been a little bit forgotten this year. So it stood to reason, if the offensive line is blocking well enough for David Montgomery, they're probably blocking well enough for Jared Goff to have a nice day. And if you combine those two things, it stands to reason the offense is going to function pretty well. And then I looked into it, and it's a little more important than even I gave it credit for. I wrote this down. In the 5 games where David Montgomery has had his best performances this year, and there's only been really 5 good ones, unfortunately, for Demo, every one of those also just happened to correspond with a really nice day from Jared Goff, whether in terms of output or in terms of efficiency. That, as we all know as Lions fans, is when this Lions offense is cracking. You go to the Dallas as the latest example. He's 6 for 60. He only had 6 carries, but 10 yards a carry. That tells you that every time he's getting the ball, he's getting a crease, he's getting some running room, and he's making yards. Goff was 25 of 34 for 309. Nice little 300-yard day. You go back to the other side of the John Morton line, to the games that he was calling. The Chicago game early in the season, David Montgomery, 11 carries, 57 yards. Not dramatic, but a nice little efficient day and some yardage for Demo. Goff, 23 of 28 for 334. The Cincinnati game, David Montgomery, 18 of carries, 65 yards. Jared Goff, 19 of 23 for 258. Wicked efficient. 19, only 4 incompletions rather. Nice day from Goff. The Washington game, David Montgomery, 15 for 71. Jared Goff, 25 for 32 and 320. And then, of course, the big one, the Baltimore game, again, on the John Morton side of things, still bared this out. David Montgomery, 12 for 151. He did have that 72-yarder that game. And Jared Goff was 20 for 28 for 202. Again, super efficient. Jared Goff doesn't have to throw for a billion yards for this offense to go. If they're running, the play action game is working. They're getting short fields. You know, the defense kicks in anything. Special teams kicks in anything. When the offense is that efficient, the Lions are going to do really, really well. That's what you need to know going into this Rams game. I'm going to talk about that defense. It's not near as bad as I wish it was. Stafford's choking out all the oxygen when they talk about the Rams, along with Puka Nacua in that past game and the 10 weeks he went without an interception. That Rams defense is damn tough, and it's on the offensive line, and a performance like the ones mentioned there, you'll know what you're in for if David Montgomery's getting yards. If David Montgomery can have an efficient day, he doesn't have to dominate. Jameer Gibbs is still the number one back in this offense, and for good reason. Only one guy can do what he does. But if David Montgomery is getting yards with his opportunities and his carries, that's a good sign. This offense does really, really well every single time he's efficient in the run game. So it's one of those things I'll be keeping an eye on. We learned that David Montgomery doing well means the offense is doing well. All the play calling is reflective of the blocking. The fact that there's a rotation in there at the run game means you're not constantly behind the sticks and throwing the ball. All of those things kind of cook together in a stew that equals a nice little day for the Lions offense. So please, let's get David Montgomery going. Get 5 some yards. The other thing that we learned coming out of this, and I think it's one of those lessons that kind of sits a little quietly in the last third of the season, is that the 2025 draft class matters. I know Brad Holmes is taking some arrows. Where's our pass rusher? All of that stuff. What are we going to do about the offensive line? All of those things. The draft class from 2025 is more important than I think people realize. Tyleik Williams, Tate Ratledge, Isaac Tesla, and now Myles Frasier. If he's any kind of guy, that's 4 dudes and 3 in the trenches that have all showed up at incredibly important positions. So we might not want to just skip past this 2025 draft class when we're talking about the sum total of what the Lions have done in accruing talent. Last year's class has been a disappointment so far. A lot of that's due to injury. Nonetheless, disappointment. The 2025 class looks pretty good so far, with some big dudes that are going to be playing in the trenches for many, many years for this Lions team, and a wide receiver that could end up being pretty special. Finally, the thing that we learned, and more on this in a little bit, the Stafford Goff trade talk, that thing is just never going away. The Lions and the Rams on collision courses, that's going to lead to the questions about what people think about that trade and the analysis of who got what and where they are now and how it all worked out. It's a zombie. It's never going to die. The Stafford Goff trade talk is immortal. Moving on to numbers over narratives. I want to talk about some of the pertinent, that shouldn't have been hard to say, pertinent digits and numbers that the Lions face as they head down not only this Sunday with the Rams, but the rest of the season. I want to start with the number 26, as in percent. That is the chances the Lions have at a playoff berth if all of the current favorites, as I record this Sunday, win in the NFC. If they all win their games like Vegas says they're supposed to, the Lions' chances take a pretty big hit. Now, of course, one of those favorites is the Los Angeles Rams, and the Lions have something to say about that one. It's the most important one. If they can win their game, they can keep their season alive, kind of like they did against Dallas. I know there are a lot of people out there, at least in the Twitterverse and on Reddit and the places that I've seen, that are saying this might be the one game the Lions lose, and this might be the one game the Lions can lose in the last 4. Lions get this win, it goes a long way in increasing those odds at a postseason berth. The next number, 394. That's as in points scored. The Lions are the number 1 scoring offense in the NFL, with all of the John Morton and all of the Dan Campbell in the reading glasses and all of the disruption that has come up and all the people that are pining away for Ben Johnson and how can we ever live without it? They're still number 1 in the only thing that matters on offense, scoring points. They're better at it than anybody in the NFL. They've got 3 games over 40 points. They've scored 394 in total and 30.3 per game. So that offense, for all of the drama surrounding it and all of the headline time that it's gotten and all of the conjecture and all of the hand-wringing and pearl clutching, has been chugging right along and scoring points better than anybody in the National Football League. Another number involving points, 17.5. This is the troubling number. That's the points per game that the Los Angeles Rams are allowing. They're 3rd in the league. That defense is good. They're really good, and they can be trouble up front. It'll be interesting to see what the Lions do to combat that, whether or not Myles Frasier gets more time, how they feel about him after he got his feet wet, and a little bit of a mixed bag of results in his debut against Dallas. But they better have a plan for those guys up front because they're going to need to take care of that if they want to score points on this LA team. They're a lot better defensively than I think they get credit for. The other numbers, 21 and 18. The reason I lumped them together is because they indicate where you see some similarities between Jared Goff and Matt Stafford. That is their ranks against pressure. 21 is Matt Stafford. Jared Goff is 18th in the league against pressure. Got to get home on Stafford. You can't have the same time to pressure that the Lions were plagued with. They fixed some of that against Dallas. AQM had the big game, made up for Aiden Hutchinson getting all the attention. They've got to find a way to get home on Stafford. It's not as though he's terribly mobile, but if you give that dude 3 seconds in the pocket, forget about it, because Puka Nacua is going to be 50 yards downfield. It'll be over. Dunzo. So got to find a way to get pressure on Stafford. He struggles with it. He's almost my age. You would expect that. 79.6 is another number that I think is important. And this goes back to my original point about the draft class of 2025. That was Tyleik Williams' PFF score against Dallas. Now, I know before anybody lights up the comments, I get it. PFF isn't the be-all, end-all, and their numbers are suspect. And okay, but it's an indicator. He was the 4th highest rated player on the defense. And he's playing a position that's mostly invisible unless you're one of those sickos that likes to watch line play. That's me. Or are paying special attention to the defensive tackles. He's been a top 25 defensive tackle, according to PFF, since around week 5. He's been playing pretty solid ball. Now, it's the run stuffing. It's the gap taking. It's, setting up things for the linebackers to make all of their plays. So it's not sexy and it's not necessarily getting a lot of attention. But this is a rookie that's coming into a team that had Super Bowl aspirations, and he's played really, really well. And he's gotten better as the season's gone on. And he's going to be one of those guys that next year everybody in Detroit's really happy to have, I'm guessing. I don't think DJ Reader probably comes back. You might not even notice. If you've got a healthy Aleem McNeil, Tyleik Williams, and you move forward from that defensive tackle position, he's a rookie. He's only going to get better, and he's playing really, really well. In that vein, 72.6 is another number. And this is, again, with the 2025 draft class. That was Tate Ratledge's. Tate Ratledge's. Why is that hard to pluralize? That's his PFF score. And I get it, PFF. They don't know nothing about nothing. But that's the 4th highest score on the offense per PFF. And again, it's a rookie. And again, it's an incredibly important trench position. Obviously, the Lions are going to have to retool this offensive line in the offseason. There are going to be some new faces in there, as many as 2 or 3. And Tate Ratledge has established himself as an answer as a rookie on a team where the offensive line has been their hallmark. They've taken their hits. We talked about the David Montgomery numbers earlier and what that means for Jared Goff. So much of that, all of it, in fact, comes down to the protection provided by the offensive line. But Tate Ratledge has gotten right in there with the disadvantages of not being between Penei Sewell and Frank Ragnow. I mean, you think about that. When the draft happened, if you're thinking as a Lions executive, if you're one of those coaches, or if you're Tate Ratledge himself, and you're like, okay, I'm gonna be next to 2 All-Pros. Yeah, no, I can do that. Well, it's been anything but that, and still the kid is playing really, really good ball. There are some young guys on this team that are super exciting and going to be a big part of things moving forward. Those 2 guys have shown up big in recent weeks. Now we got to talk about the sweet irony of good marketing.
Oh, sweet irony!
Talking about this whole idea of hunting season. I know every year the team has to come out with some sort of slogan. They got to put it all over Ford Field. They got to put it up on the website, and they got to make all the screensavers and the wallpapers and all the other things with whatever it is they've decided is their new moniker for the year. I always thought this was a little bit weird, going all the way back to the preseason when they started doing the hunting season thing, because the Lions were coming off a 15-win season. They were back-to-back NFC North champs. They were one of the best teams in the NFC. So what are we doing? You're the hunted, man. You were on top right until the playoffs. I don't want to talk about it any more than anybody else does. But during the regular season, You were the premier team in the league in terms of wins. It was amazing to watch this team go. And yet, they went with the hunting season moniker. Well, now the season has become just that, hence the irony. This is all about hunting for this Lions team over the next 4 weeks. They can't do it all on their own. They do need a little bit of help. They're going to need the league to keep being topsy-turvy, and with all of the division games that are going to be played in the final month, you can expect a little bit of that. It's also a different challenge for Dan Campbell, and I'm super curious about how he goes about handling it, because this team has been very businesslike. He's super consistent in his messaging, but the outside noise and the fact that this team is not in a dominant position right now, in fact, they're on the outside looking in as I record this, they wouldn't be a playoff team if the playoffs started today, is a different mind space to be in. The first test of that was the Dallas Cowboys, who had their own mental hurdle to get over, and maybe it's just me, but I figure if the Dallas Cowboys have a mental hurdle to get over, they're probably going to trip and fall on it and be on YouTube and one of those fail videos. And they did just that. They looked like a team that was distracted, that was feeling themselves a little bit, and they also lost one of their primary playmakers in CeeDee Lamb, and after that, it was kind of curtains for them. The Lions' offense was clicking, and off they went. Different challenge with the LA Rams. 1, it's on the road. 2, it's Matt Stafford, not Dak. 3, the Rams have been playing really good ball for a really long time. They've been a model of consistency. I know they had the hiccup against the Panthers. They had the 2 interceptions from Matt Stafford. But other than that, if you've watched Rams football, including that win over the Cardinals, it's just the Cardinals, but they're an NFL team too. The Rams look really, really good. So it's a different kind of challenge. To see him get his team ready to go in there and take this from them like hunters, like you have to, will be something to watch. It's going to be the same the following week, win or lose. It's going to be the same the week after that. They're going to come right down to the wire, and it looks more and more like that last game at Soldier Field in Chicago, in whatever weather you get in the final week of the season, could be really, really important. I think, for my money, going back to so much of what we've already talked about in this show, settling the offense down, getting whatever stability you can get out of the offensive line, that's job one. You do that, and this team has a chance. They did it last year with 114 players on the defensive side on the injured reserve list. They've got a much healthier situation going on with the defense. They made key plays against Dallas. You need 1 or 2 of those, and the special teams to come through with anything. You give this offense a chance, and if that offensive line can hold its water, the Lions are going to have a chance every single week, but they're going to have to play mistake-free football. They're going to have to be on their details. Dan Campbell can't let anything slip, and I know that's one of the major criticisms that he's received from folks that point to Ben Johnson, is that, oh, he's just crazy for details. Well, let's find out. Let's find out if that was Ben Johnson, because he's got his own challenge coming up now in the last part of the season. We'll get to that in just a little bit. But Dan's got to keep his team. He's got to keep his team centered. He's got to be on the details. The preparation's got to be good. And there's the matter of the reinforcements he's about to get. Ah, yes, the reinforcements. This is a huge part of the season for the Lions. We all watched it go the other way last year, where it was nothing but attrition and finding guys that were retired and on couches and calling them up on Tuesday, putting them on the field on Sunday. Now, at the very least, the Lions have some of this working in their favor the other way, especially on the offensive line, where Christian Mahogany returned to practice this week. He's going to be back into the rotation, getting in at that left guard spot. And again, Myles Frasier, I'm counting him as a reinforcement, even though he was never a part of this thing until last week. He's a guy I got high hopes for. Plays guard, plays tackle, big body, and somebody that when he hooked up in his debut as an NFL player was an absolute mauler like he was at LSU. He made mistakes. He had 2 penalties. He olayed a guy. He was really hard on himself in the post-game media session, said that he obsesses on his mistakes. I expect that out of a rookie lineman, but that's a guy with something to contribute to. And the offensive line is where it all starts. It's where everything for this team is going to pivot, whether Jared Goff has the time to execute in the play action game and in the pass game the way that we saw against Dallas, whether or not you can get both of those running backs going and create creases for them in the run game. It's all about the offensive line. So getting Christian Mahogany back, getting Myles Frasier on the field and getting him some snaps, I think those are huge, huge developments for the last month of the season. There's also Kirby Joseph on the defensive side, he may be back. And with Brian Branch done for the season with that awful Achilles injury, obviously you know what he means to the team. He's not just an all-pro. He's not just the leader in the secondary. He's also the tallest guy back there at 6'1". Everybody else that's back in that secondary, on the short side. Also, I don't want to jinx this. I'm not going to say his name out loud. I don't want a Candyman in this situation. I don't want to do it. But in terms of reinforcements, number 92's been out there, setting the edge, doing the thing. That's all I'm going to say. I'm just going to leave it there because I don't want to jinx it, and I feel like I just might jinx it. And finally, Tom M. F. and Kennedy. Can we talk about what he brought to the special teams game? I mean, just look at this graphic from the team and what he did in the punt and kick return games. It's unbelievable. Came out and gave this team a spark, gave the offense great field position, and again, occasionally also takes a big pass play and makes a first down out of it. The guy is always there. He's so steady. You can't count him out. He's like the Highlander. He's going to outlast everybody on this roster, and he was an absolute spark plug. So getting something out of the special teams, out of that kind of reinforcement, is a huge development because one of those plays, one of those kick returns, just one, can swing a game. And Tom Kennedy jumped right in and made a big, big difference for this team. And we'll wrap things up with a look at the enemies list. Got to take a look at the people and teams and things that are in the Lions' way as they head down the final month of the regular season schedule. And we'll start with Ben Johnson. Not Benedict Johnson, not because he left the team, not because, oh no, what are you going to do without him? Again, the Lions are the number one scoring offense in the NFL, and Ben Johnson hasn't been a part of that. No, I say that because the Lions need the Bears to lose, and lose a lot. Lose as much as possible. Lose out. I mentioned it with Chris on Sunday that I wondered if that shirtless moment in the locker room wouldn't come back to bite him. Seems like a team does it every year. They get a little carried away with a celebration of something that doesn't technically mean anything, and then later on we look back and go, you weren't quite ready for the bright lights. And with him shirtless and flexy in the locker room, I wonder if this team doesn't have some issues on their hands. Their point differential is garbage. They haven't played any quality competition. They just played the Pack. They got to play them again coming up the week after this one. They could lose some games, and the Lions need him to. So Ben Johnson makes the enemies list. Right next to him, Matt LaFleur. And not for the same reason. I know if the Bears lose, the Pack have to win. I'll never forgive Matt LaFleur for putting us all in the situation of having to hope the Packers win. That's not natural. It's horrible. It's a terrible position to be in. Plus, he's got that punchable face. He's always complaining. So Matt LaFleur makes the enemies list because Green Bay's in the way too, and they're leading the division. And somehow they're favored against the Broncos. I still haven't quite wrapped my head around that. The Broncos are playing pretty good football. I've watched a lot of Denver football this year, and they got to go to Denver and deal with that defense. We'll see, man. We'll see. Most of the NFC West making the enemies list this week. Everybody but the Cardinals. They're not on anybody's enemy list. They're probably talking to their travel agents at this point. But the other three teams are a problem because San Francisco, Seattle, and LA have just been winning games. And now, thanks to some unfortunate injuries in Indianapolis, the San Francisco schedule is pretty cakey. There's some stuff out there for Seattle they're going to have to deal with. All of these teams have to play each other, so that's good news. But the NFC West needs to lose, and lose a lot, or 3/4 of it, 75% of the NFC West needs to lose and lose a lot because they're going to screw up everything if they put 3/4 of their division into the playoff. And again, this is all about looking ahead at playoff seeding. Also making the enemies list, this came up in the beginning, whoever it was in Monday's media session with Dan Campbell, who asked him who he thinks won the Stafford Goff trade. I don't know who it was. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Somebody did. All these years down the road, all of the different games that they've played, the first game where they lost, Penei Sewell got into it with Aaron Donald, and then the playoff game where the Lions won and Goff was redeemed, and we saw the game like over and over again. These teams have played over and over again. This story's been written, and still there's somebody who's looking the headband of the Detroit Lions in the face and saying, "Who do you think won the trade?" What in the blue hell do you think he's going to say? What is he going to say? It's just dumb and short-sighted and tired, and you did it. And I could almost hear the collective sigh in the media room. And you got to be really working in that media room to get a big, heavy sigh out of people, because they specialize in dumb questions in that room. So whoever it was, you made the enemies list this week too. And then finally, Matt Stafford. He's a good dude. He's a great quarterback. He's got one-of-one type arm talent. I got nothing against him as a person, but he's got to lose this week. We need him to do some Matt Staffordy things. I need to see interceptions in the back of the end zone. If he could just rifle a ball over his receiver's head and into the waiting arms of Kirby Joseph or whomever is playing as safety, that'd be great. Just this once. After that, you're free to go on about your day, Matt. No hard feelings. I don't want to belabor the point, but you had to round out the enemies list because we need you to do some. We need you to be bad, Matt Stafford. Okay, please, just this once. If you could be less surgical than you were certainly last week against Arizona, more like the Carolina game, a couple of interceptions, maybe a little pick six. Toss it to Derek Barnes. He's owed one. He almost got one last week. So whatever you got to do to make that happen would be just great. That's going to do it for me, man. That's the gray area. And thank you again for taking the time. Please like and subscribe to the channel. That's how we get to do what we do. I will be on the post-game show after the LA game with Chris. And until then, see ya.